I am originally from Congo, and for those that know this country, Democratic Republic of Congo is a country that is swayed into uh, different kinds of violence, different kinds of conflicts. I don't want to say political upheavals because I think it's a multi-layered upheaval, thing in Congo. It's not only about politics; it's also about um, ethnicity. It's also about tribes. And and the reason why I left Congo was not due to hunger or political upheavals. No, a little bit of context. My dad is from a kingdom family. For those that know how ethnic conflicts used to happen, we were pursued, we were followed, we were ran after, and um, we like we kept shifting from places to places, from villages to villages, and I happened to recall this day when we had an invasion. Our village was invaded, and then there's too much killings of people, village burnings. And my dad gave me a dagger and says, "You need to find your way, otherwise we'll all be killed here." So I found my way. It took me time. It took me about 3 weeks to move from Congo to Uganda. For many places, I had to walk. And the downside of the cool side now that I'm here, I think what I appreciated a lot is during conflict, when there's war or there's any, for example, take today's example, like today we have the climate crisis. I appreciate the fact that when there is a problem, even the enemy turns out to be somebody that collaborates with you. So I remember the other tribes, the adversary tribe that used to hate us, this like political, ethnic hatred, whatever. And when we were running, I remember this family of people who hated our families that said, "Hey, we are running from this village burning and an invasion." So we ran together, and then we shifted from my village to another village to another village. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not here to talk about it here. I'm here to talk about um, how I also got in Uganda and how it started, how my initiative started, how my activism unfolded. So after I arrived in Uganda, it was so hard to be safe, because usually when you run away from your home, the only thing that comes in mind is safety, nothing else. Safety. Whatever the definition we're going to, we put it to it. However much we define safety, this is the only thing that a refugee wants. And then they want to go and live in places that are away from the gunshot, the bullets. And then after a time, after weeks of staying away from bullets, there comes other needs. Like I used to go to school in my country. Am I going to school here now? I used to have enough food in my home. Am I having enough food here? But the first thing that came in mind was you want to live away from this invasion. You want to be safe. Okay. So to me, that's how I define. I think we have different layers of safety, uh, that most importantly, when you run away and while in search of safety, you realize you come across different losses. And to me, the loss was not more of, okay, I've lost my family, I've parted from my family, I've separated from my family. It was more of, okay, I think, who am I? My identity. I lost that. And I grappled and I crumbled a lot to find that. And until now, even when I'm taking courses in psychology, yes, it tells me scientifically, I'm still in the age where I need to grapple with, identity and my place in the world, of course. But that was not that was not the thing. I just wanted to know, who am I? Where do I belong? You know. let's not sympathize about, how hard life is for refugees. I think life is hard everywhere. It's just too tough for a refugee to define or to have a choice of who they want to be. That's how hard it got to be for me. Even though I knew where I came from, it was still hard to have a choice because life in the camp does not offer you choices. You have to live as the camp is. So see, I was traumatized, right? I was traumatized and I healed through community check-ins. Through the help of some friends, I borrowed their phones. I connected to internet. I was reading. I left home. I knew a tiny bit knowledge of English in the camp. I started learning English through YouTube videos. Even the English I'm talking now is through YouTube videos. And I vowed and say, you know what? I'm going to start teaching other people how to speak English. So the more I teach, the more I learn from them, the more I have the thirst of accumulating more and more knowledge. And I was doing that. I did that for 5 months, 6 months, 1 year. I had the other urge and say, hey, I think I'm going to form groups, groups where people can come and talk and just tell stories. Part of the reason is one of the huge background they have is I lived so much with my grandparents, and my grandparents were magicians. And so I'm rooted in stories. I used to sit around the fires and listening to old people telling us stories. And in the camp, I could not see that. I didn't see young people gathered around old people learning from them. I didn't see that. I didn't see groups of people coming together just to learn, just to laugh, just to speak. I didn't see that. So I started a group. From the people I taught English, I interested them. They came. And the first day I shared my story, and I still recall the faces we made. We all cried, we all shedded tears. And at some point I felt, okay, I think I really messed up. There's nothing that's going to come out of here. So we started like 15 people. And the next day I was called, I was invited to tell a story. We were like 50 people. And I kept doing that. And it was like more than 200 people are now meeting. We have now subgroups of people just telling stories and enjoying that and appreciating that. It was cool. It was really, really cool for me. So I kept going into community check-ins online. And I remember the first day I met a woman called Nora Batterson from, if some of you know her, Nora Batterson in Sweden. And she told about warm data. It was the day I was looking for support to buy food. I was imagining an event where people will simply come and share the food. We tell stories, we share the food. If you're gonna cry, if you're gonna laugh, just share the food and we go home. And Nora saw this event and say, hey, do you wanna come to one of my warm data? You might wanna learn or you might wanna ask for support. So I went to a warm data and it was the most important thing I could ever come across. I met people and I learned from them and they became part of who I am now. They became more than just families. They interested me. I met a person called Teresa who works with a nonprofit in the United States that deals with education. And she inspired me a lot. And I started writing novels. I wrote articles. I contributed to many, many academic stuff that propelled me academically and eventually got me a chance of getting some funding to initiate many groups. Now, because I already had the knowledge into, of course, mindfulness, I started a group for yoga and storytelling because I'm a good enthusiast of education. Well, education that transcends the borders of a narrow system education. I initiated an English center, but also a nonprofit that works with children in schools. And the goal was, how do we simply decentralize education? How do we simply build everything around the child? Imagining a child to be the change of tomorrow. Imagining the child to be the different us, the different me. How do we invest in the child so that we look up at a leader we wanted to have. And I'll tell you why. Part of the reason is I do not have to make you believe this, but today we are bearing the result. We are bearing the fruits of what have been built decades and decades ago. So technically speaking, if we need a new world, we need to invest in people that are going to be our age tomorrow. And who are those? These are the kids. I'm just bringing us into the momentum of what I'm really trying to put forward here. So I kept doing lots of community work. I remember there was a project that came to help children, to bridge the educational divide, the technology divide. So they brought devices that were connected and solar powered, so kids would use them and read. And I was like, okay, this is good, but this does not fit the need. This does not fit the need in the camp. This does not successfully apply to what the camp really needs. Children need education. They don't need tech tools. Okay, or while when we talk about technology, maybe we need a need-based technology. So I spoke with the founders, and they were really, really so generous with me to sit and recruit a team around me that were able to redesign the materials and redesign the materials by conducting surveys and really trying to find out what kids and families really want. And it turns out 70% of children in the camp simply want to regain the chance to go back to school, to know how to learn how to read and write. And now it was hard for a child to learn from a YouTube video, especially if a child can't speak English. This is a child who spoke French, they spoke Arabic. And now this is a child, you're bringing a tablet, you're bringing a screen and you let them choose what they want to watch. So I'm glad I made that. I'm glad I worked on several projects. And I'm glad I have founded an organization that wants to. Decentralizing would be a very poor word of vocabulary. I think it's holisticized. It's not bad that we have the current education system in place. It's just so limiting if we believe into it 100% and think this is the only thing we need to rely on to. And in the world with so much violence today, I look at what Gaza is going through, I look at what Lebanon is going through, I look at what my country, Democratic Republic of Congo, is going through. And I'm like, geez, maybe we need to reimagine education. Maybe rather than the education that teaches a child to count all the countries in the United States or count all the continents in the world, we simply need a child who knows how to plant a tree. We simply need a child who knows how to forgive the other child. We simply need a child that understands, a child that is more compassionate and human. There's too much violence. And if we picture violence being the seed that we are planting, there is absolutely no way we can picture a better world, because a child who's watching their parents being slaughtered, being killed, this is not the child who's going to be a good leader tomorrow. And we call ourselves change makers. We must change. And how do we change that? We change the kids. Okay, let's change how we educate our kids or our children. Let's change it. And while there is artificial intelligence, of course, there is the AI world. It's there. Yes, it's there. And we should appreciate the fact that it's there. But slanting into artificial intelligence and thinking this is the world, this is what is revolutionizing the world. We're not being practical. We're not being practical of how many people in the world know artificial intelligence. How many people actually in the world know how to use a telephone? How many people in the world will be able to run a search on internet? I am concerned by the media propaganda. I'm concerned by the numbers we see. I'm concerned by the impact, the concept around impact. I'm like, really? So here are the facts. These are the things I'm playing with. Today, statistically, there's like 17% of the whole world um, is displaced. There's like 31% of Africa displaced, 21 in Central Asia, 3% in Europe and America. And speaking of education, this is the same ratio. These are the percentage we have. The percentage we have, like 3% of people not educated. Illiteracy, we have 21, have 31. Anyway, these are the words I was like, I should keep this in mind. And when I'm sharing with people, this is the thing we should keep. Let's consider that being the truth. So we have more than 80 million people who are forcibly displaced. And the situation in Gaza, of course, there is no word to describe how hard, dangerous, violent, despicable that is, or dehumanizing. I called a friend in Gaza recently and I told her, "How are you doing?" He said, "Look, everything is here. It's just a lack of decency." I was like, "Huh? I'm gonna sit down with that and meditate. Maybe that could be the truth. Maybe it's not just more violent. Maybe decency as normal human beings." And anyway, let's not talk about that. So I was reading this research by the United States that says only one child in 4 refugee children attend primary school. This is something that's motivating me to say, well, while I'm in Canada, of course, I'm doing my courses. Yes, I still want to do more. I still want to accumulate more. I want to go back to countries that need me most. I don't want to be lost in brands. And there are also crises. I looked at mental crisis. I was reading about employment crisis, climate crisis, education crisis, environmental crisis, humanitarian crisis. What I want to say about this, everything that I am reading so far, all the books, all the violence I'm watching online, all the media, the propaganda, the hatred on the media, the hatred on the social media. I see that in the community. I see that at work. I see that in school. I see that. And my beliefs are there is a breach in the education system. There is a breach. There's no education system that fosters love. There's no education system that fosters unity. The education system that is today is the education system that is teaching a child to know the names of celebrities in the world. The child ends up knowing names of celebrity. A child ends up becoming very competitive and not cooperative. So if today we are still sending our kids to school, even when we know this is a broken system, and we send kids into a broken system, let us be mindful. We are not expecting different leaders. We are not. This is a broken system that will bring a broken mindset. Today, I love how we as young people, or there are new initiatives that are into place to decentralize education. But we have been doing this for a decade now, I think, for a decade, 10 years now. And I'm like, what is happening? Why don't we simply incorporate this into today's education? Why don't you redesign the curriculum? Instead of academic enrichment, why don't we look at an education ecosystem that teaches both academic, character, arts, conflict resolution, and community service all together? This is what the world needs. The world doesn't need you to only be able to speak good English. The world needs you also to be able to be respectful of the other person. The world needs you to be able to express your inner self, be able to express yourself. The world needs you to be more compassionate. The world that we're living now needs more conflict resolution and more community service and less of the academics. There's no point for me to learn 1 + 1 makes 2. There's so much need for me to learn how to heal this world, this wounded world. There's so much to do for me with climate crisis. We need more solutions, So I thought of how do we improve the education system by simply incorporating the 5 stroke that I presented here. So academic enrichment, how do you provide adequate resources? How do we invest in qualified teachers? How do we create a curriculum that is tailored to the specific needs and aspirations of students, of refugee students? This was one of the presentation I gave. I said, one thing that we are looking in today's education fabric is we do the copy and paste. A child from Lebanon is like a child who's born in Lebanon and grows up in Lebanon knows very well what their Lebanon is. And then the child ends up learning in France. And when they graduate from France, they come back from France instead of taking the knowledge acquired in France and the knowledge acquired in Lebanon and mix that together and see what's important for one specific area. We tend to paste what we have learned from universities. We tend to do exactly what our university or school designed us to do. We tend to do exactly what the education that is today dictates us to do. And character education, we need an education that's not just about acquiring knowledge. It's also about shaping character. One of the examples I told a friend of mine lastly, and he got so curious with me. I said, hey, if you hold a PhD or if you have a master's degree in whatever subject, and you still do not understand the essence of keeping your environment clean, prove me you are not educated. You have no character. You're not being mindful. You have no respect. You don't realize how connected you are to the nature, and that whatever you do towards the nature has its consequences. I see people with degrees littering everywhere. They're littering. They dump waste without like, I think they know this is very bad and they keep doing it. And the reason is this is something that's been designed. It might be hard to challenge and to question our beliefs. So we need moral and ethical development. This is very crucial. Morality is one of the elements of human being that's very rare today. I see how we communicate. Oftentimes we tend to be so selfish by judging things as like based on what we are, what we know, what we have acquired. And we offer no room for improvement. We offer no room for amazement. We offer no room to be questioned. We offer no room to be wrong. Well, this is something we need. This is what I need to teach my unborn children. This is what I need to tell them. You must know, yes, and by knowing, you must still offer time to be wrong, to be taught, to learn from the other person. And considering the violence in the world, art to me seems to be one of the key components of education system that should be added. A child like me, someone who has experienced too much violence, if I didn't have a chance to share with others, to do the storytelling, to do meditation, to do the yoga, to be in music, could be anything that is art-based. This is how we heal. This is how our souls heal. This is how our spiritual self and emotional selves interact. This is how we become more considerate. This is how we become more human. Because art allows communicating, healing, and exploring the inner self and fostering resilience. We also need a system that empowers students to resolve, conflicts peacefully. And of course, community service. We need to teach our children from now on, like the kids. It might be hard to teach me because I'm so selfish by the, I am made of a system that was put in place decades and decades ago. So but the child that's coming up, we still have a chance to invest in the child. We need to tell the child that you are not complete. See, there's this word, I read it, where to say, hey, I owe no one explanation. I owe no one. I can be me, and I can be unapologetically me. Yes, but that's not the way to live. Considering that you cannot live alone. You can't stay alone. You are there because other people are there. You are there because there's a tree near you. You are there because you're alive. And remember, your body being a system, you do not simply exist. There's a lot of factors that influence your existence. And by that, you owe people respect. You owe them lots of stuff. You owe them love. You owe the nature love, respect, tender, and care. You need that. Okay, you must do that. There's a big difference between not letting other people's words or feedbacks influence you and being being aware, being conscious that you are not alone. You do not exist because you're alone. You're not simple. You're not the self. You are made of the self and the other. In one way or the other, you are influenced by factors that are outside you and inside you, which means you are apologetic, not unapologetic. You are there because somebody else is there. So you are there because I am here. You are learning because someone is teaching. We need a system that's designed based on that. Maybe that way we know tomorrow, or in 3 years, on 30 years, and 50 years, we are designing, we are building a world where people will feel indebted towards giving back. And to give back is not giving money back. No, giving back is looking at this beautiful tree and say, there's no tree in my village. I'm going to plant one tree. I'm not planting a tree because I will benefit from it. I'll plant a tree because one day somebody will walk past the tree and will eat the fruits from this tree. One day there's an animal, there's an herb that will miss shade or shelter, and this tree will serve as a shelter. It's being considerate of the mother nature, the earth. So here are the points. I don't want to read all of them. But in the world that is marked by trauma and adversity, teaching conflict resolution skills is essential. When we went to school, my first time I went to the university, it was my first time here in Canada and in a university that's so huge, big, sophisticated, and busy. And we're being asked, hey, who do you want to be? And I say, who I want to be, I don't know. I feel like every day I want to be a different person. My becoming is really fluctuating. I am not static. I am more fluid and flexible. And I realized, well, there's one part that's very essential here. I was having a great conversation, talking about who I want to be. Everyone was teaching, telling who they want to be. And one guy in the class said, I want to be a great communicator. And I was like, wow. And that's a great dream. Very, very complex as well. Being a great communicator involves a lot of stuff. It involves not simply being able to speak the language like the other person or speak the language natively. It involves also a very deep listening. It involves also nurturing compassion, sympathy. And I was like, well, this is great. And when I was speaking, when I was imagining about these 5 components in the education system, I was like, okay, how about rather than today's education measuring IQ, how about AQs, attitude, quotient, emotional quotient, rather than intelligence. So the world needs this mechanism because it acknowledges the multifaceted nature of human growth. Our existence is such a very complex concept. Growth is too complex for us to understand. And I see as translating growth the way we think growth is, and we go on building narrative around that, and we influence other people to believe in what we build, which is not too bad. It's just so sad because we believe in that and we become static. We don't want to accumulate more or question whether this is working or not. Like today, I I would so much be interested in a consensus or in a group of people who sit together, could be experts in education, say, hey, when was this education designed? What has been working so far? What is there that's not working? Should we remove something? Should we supplement something? We may not need to eradicate everything. We just simply need to add more. Thank you. Thank you so much.